everyone, I'd like to introduce you to our mentor, Ishita Shah. Ishita is a curator, historian, and a researcher. She's also a designer. She comes up with 10 years of experience in design education, cultural preservation, and as well as has a forte in interior design and architecture. So let's hear from Ishita. Ishita, tell me something about your expertise. How did you choose this as your field, as your career?
So it's basically while doing interior architecture, one was cognizant of the fact that there is an interest in research, an interest in writing, and also, with my mentors sort of telling me how analytical I am, that led to me also exploring these avenues and realizing that there was a need in the industry. And I'm talking about 10 years back, which doesn't feel long enough, but yes, if you look at the post-independence history, we were too late to be looking at design history and design research. While there were a lot of senior members doing it, but I think I felt more inspired to sort of take it further.
Alright, what is your creative process? Because I believe every designer has a creative process which they go through, how they get inspired and when they execute it. So I'm sure, not a secret, but a creative process if there's something like that.
I'm actually glad that first of all you asked me that question, and I'm saying that because usually as a historian or a researcher, people think that, why do you need to do theatre? It's all research, writing and reading. But over the years, one has tried to sort of instate that no, this is also a creative practice. And I think what really works as a process for me is to connect with people, connect with places and connect with their experiences or practices on ground. And that sort of leads to then the set of questions, that leads to need for answers, and put together those answers, you sort of design for them, you create for them, you make more projects out of it.
Alright, you've been mentoring our students, our interior design students for the JDR Design Awards. What's the one thing which you tell them, which you teach them, or your methodology, basically when you mentor them, or if you could share something on that?
Well, I think I just took them through my practice of understanding culture and community, because these were all students who were in the thesis project and they were already looking at very different kind of inquiries. So one wanted to introduce them to different methods and tools which are to do with engaging with culture, engaging with community. How do you respond to historical discourse into a design discourse which is about tomorrow? So this whole mindset that if I'm designing for tomorrow, why do I worry about the past? Sort of breaking that stereotype. And what we worked on were many different kinds of exercises, from how do you interview to how do you work with users and community groups, how do you test your product, which is for community, for a public space. And one of the most exciting things we did was to go to Cubbon Park.
Okay.
One session was at Cubbon Park where we said all the exercises that you thought about, let's try it out with real people. Why keep it inside a classroom alone?
That's actually one of the really good idea. Because most of the things happens inside the classroom, but we don't look beyond into it. So I think practical exposure and putting it out, everything what you've learned inside, it's actually a good thing. So how was your experience when you were mentoring our students?
Well, it's been quite fun, simply because they're very enthusiastic. So I think that's really what a mentor really looks for, or a facilitator looks for. You need that response action basically. So you can show them new things and they will take to it, they will try it out, they'll come back to you with more questions. I think as a young educator, that's all I've usually looked for, because I myself am learning, right? So I'm not here to be an expert at something, and hence it's a co-learning process that I believe in. And hence the enthusiasm of the students or learners, rather I call them that, is very important. That they will ask you more questions, they push your boundaries, I can go look up more things for them. And apart from that, I think the capability to take in things was also quite remarkable. So they would understand the exercises, even if it doesn't fall through because they couldn't find the right infrastructure for it or something, but at least the message was being received. So you're again left with a rewarding feeling that yes, they're taking it along, and when they get a chance, they'll be able to apply it.
So where do you think the interior design industry is heading towards right now? What was there in the past when you had joined this field, when you had chosen this as your career, and when you were working with it, and now when we have to go with it? So if you can relate to the past, present and the future of the interior design industry.
Well, it's a little difficult for me to answer this question simply because I don't think I've been constantly in touch with the industry. But as a reader, perhaps I can make a comment about it. I think one sees that first of all the field changes with the context, with places. So it's very difficult to say, okay, it's pan-India because Indian cities are behaving differently, right? So Bombay versus Bangalore versus Ahmedabad. And interior design or architecture, because it's so much about city and people, it sort of responds to those needs. But largely you do see a trend in terms of appreciation for local, appreciation for being more responsive to the context, more responsive to where you live, which wasn't there earlier. I mean, at least which was, I can't say not there, but perhaps not more prominent. You were looking for the global trend, you were looking for what the West is doing, and I want an apartment like that. And then this appreciation for cultural aesthetics and the appreciation for local materials, responding to the climate change, responding to sustainability issues, sort of seems to be seeping into the interior lifestyle as well, and I feel quite thrilled about it. Post-COVID, I think this is only going to be an advantage. So it is something that will help you fight a situation like a pandemic. It will help you respond to crisis if you are more local, if you are responsive to what is around you, rather than try and be non-sustainable by sourcing things from across the world. So even if you didn't want it, I think you will sort of look for it. You will try and become more hyper-local, as we say.
What's our role as a designer with this situation right now? How do we can play our role in it?
I think it's
or as a researcher. I mean, if you've been into research, so I think
whether a researcher or designer, I've stopped seeing them as boundaries. I think they're interchangeable roles, and that's what I said earlier also with my part where I said this is also practice, that's also practice. So the same practitioner needs to be both. So in the same creative process, at what point are you a researcher? At what point are you a designer? At what point you are nobody and you're a people's person? You sort of make those choices. And why I'm mentioning this again is simply because I think at this point it's really about being people's person. It's about being where you are and seeing what the need of the place is. So you know that I'm not from here, right? So one of my learning over the COVID times is that yes, I yearn for Ahmedabad, I yearn for home, but I think what I really can resolve right now is what's around me. And that understanding of, being where you are, being there for the people, and then of course, if research is required, be a researcher. If volunteering is required, be a volunteer. Yes, if you need to design products, please take up designing of products and respond to that.
Today, in these tough times, if you would like to share some insights and tips for our students, as well as our aspirants who would love to be a part of this industry, who are looking to be, be a part of this industry, but then they have certain questions in mind because of the COVID or something. So if you would love to share something, it would be great.
Again, I hope I'm not being too philosophical, but just out of my own experience as well as a student, but also as an educator, has really been about embracing the uncertainty. It's easier said than done, I must warn that as well. It's difficult. I know that you're not ready for changes, but I think more and more it's just becoming true that things will change. And this whole mindset that we've all had with K-12 education or even undergrad education, that okay, I did A, then I did B, then I did C, and hence my career lands at Z. I don't think it really works like that. You have to have the ability to adapt yourself with changing times, with these uncertainties, and continue to thrive, continue to try new things.
Well, thank you so much, Ishita. It's a pleasure having you here with us.
Thank you, Yashashri. Thank you so much.